On this episode of Second Swing Thoughts, we discuss the importance of club path and how it can dictate a club fitting at second swing. We've got a couple of club fitters that dive into that topic. Also, we've got a couple tour winners that we're going to dive into their winning bags and break it all down as far as how those clubs and shafts have worked in club fittings. Plus, we'll just round out the year on the PGA Tour with some fun stats. So that and a whole lot more on this episode of Second Swing Thoughts. Hey golfers, I'm Drew Mahowald of Second Swing Golf. That's Sean Bauer. We're in studio for yet another Second Swing Thoughts episode. We're feeling thankful this week for the episode. It is Thanksgiving week. Some interesting stuff, some fun stuff, some cool stats. A lot baked into this one here, Sean.
Yeah, I mean the 2025 PGA Tour season officially wrapped up. Obviously, they have some kind of standalone events here in December, but with the RSM Classic, the fall season is over, so the top 100 have been determined. So a lot of good stuff to look into there, including, a big win, a historic win for the country of Finland, especially on the PGA Tour. And then, we got Harrison Arnold back, Jake Montgomery kind of breaking down some specific fitting data and kind of how they use that to, find the right equipment for you. So a lot of good stuff, but let's start things off with the turn on the PGA Tour, the RSM Classic, and it was Sami Välimäki winning his first career PGA Tour tournament and the first Finn to win on the PGA Tour. So pretty cool. He's kind of had his name up on some leaderboards, some of those smaller events, but still getting himself up there in contention. Played a pretty flawless final round there. Cool way to wrap up the season to have, a monumental win, for the country of Finland there.
Yeah, and he has had some close calls before, so I think that tends to be how it goes for a lot of tour pros, whether it happens in a matter of, 4 or 5 starts on the PGA Tour, or, you're a guy who's kind of been a journeyman, so to speak, but you get your name in contention a few times, you know what it feels like to play on a Sunday with a chance to win. And maybe you've come up short once or twice, but it seemed like that experience really helped him as, some challengers made some runs at him. There were some really low rounds on Sunday. Castillo and McGreevy were kind of right there on his heels, but he was able to kind of hold them off with a couple of big plays and big putts as well. Some really good shots down the stretch to kind of stay on top there.
Yeah, really cool. We'll take a quick look at his what's in the bag. Of course, you and Harrison will kind of break down the specific equipment coming up later in the show. But he's kind of a equipment free agent, so a nice mixed bag. Titleist GT3 driver. Then he goes into a TaylorMade R7 Quad Mini driver, and then goes straight into a TaylorMade QI35 7-wood, playing at 21 degrees. Irons, Ping Blueprint S, kind of continuing a hot few weeks for Ping irons. Wedges, Vokey SM10. And then on the putter side, he's going with, the white-hot OG 2-ball. Of course, the 2-ball being one of the most revolutionary putters, I would say, of all time. Kind of a cool, unique little bag there.
Yeah, I think if you were to chart the free agents in golf, I bet there'd be a lot of R7 minis of the players using a mini driver. There'd be a lot of QI35 fairwoods. There'd be a lot of Vokey wedges. Probably a lot of GT drivers and Blueprint irons from Ping. I mean, if you were to build a bag for players that are free agents, I think our fitters would have a lot of those models in there. So it makes a lot of sense there. And, of course, Harrison dives into more of the intricacies a little bit. But I think this is a classic bag of here's what's worked really well in the fitting bays of second swing, and it translates really well to what's working for free agents on tour.
Yeah. Yeah, and so the RSM Classic kind of wrapped up the 2025 calendar for the PGA Tour. So with that, the PGA Tour stat leaders have been finalized, and some pretty remarkable statistics, especially if you're Scotty Scheffler. First, we're going to talk about strokes gained. Scheffler led the tour in strokes gained total, tee to green, and approach. Not too bad. Sam Burns was your leader in strokes gained putting. Piercing Cootie, strokes gained off the tee, although he wasn't the longest hitter. That belongs to Aldrich Pokeeter, who I think averaged about 325 off the tee this year, so that's pretty good. And then Mateo Monacero was around the green.
Yeah.
So those are kind of your big statistical leaders there in the PGA Tour. But the one that really stood out, Drew, was scoring average. Scotty Scheffler was the scoring round leader in rounds 1, 2, 3, and 4 for the season. First player since Tiger Woods in 2000 to do that.
And I think one way that you're able to lead the scoring on PGA Tour in so many ways, he also is number 1 in bogey avoidance at, I think, 10.5%. And you could go through the entire PGA Tour stats database and you'd find Scotty's name on the top of a lot of them. But I think that's kind of his calling card nowadays. Besides his swing itself, which is a little unique, he's not really flashy with his game. He hits fairways. He hits the green in a safe spot. He plays to the large chunk of the green where he can miss a little bit. If he makes a few putts that day, he's going to shoot a low score. Otherwise, he'll 2-putt and make a few birdies on par 5s, shoot a 68. I mean, that's kind of his game. It's nothing special, nothing crazy, but it's just really, really, really good at everything.
Yeah, and that's really, early on in his career, I don't think Tiger did as much, but as he kind of matured, he kind of did that same thing where he just would let other players make the mistakes by going at pins. He would aim at middle of greens and stuff. But obviously, when he was younger, Tiger was very flashy, especially in that year 2000. Some of the shots that man hit are you still watch him today and you're just blown away what he could do, especially with long irons in his hand. But I think that's where, people, and I'm about as big of a Tiger Woods fan as you're ever going to find, but to see Scotty consistently doing stuff that only Tiger has done just continues to speak to his greatness.
Right.
Is he Tiger Woods? No. There'll never be another Tiger Woods, but he might be the next closest thing we've had to it. I know we've said that about lots of other golfers with Rory and with Spieth and whatnot, but in terms of consistent ball striking and greatness.
We're coming up on year 3 or year 4 now of Scotty dominating in a big way. Obviously, this was maybe another leap forward for him this year statistically and just the way he was leading these strokes gain categories. But it's one thing when you have a little window of 1 year of dominance. There were John Rahm had a brief moment there. Rory's had his moments. But I think Scotty's had the longest stretch of this really big-time dominance, and it doesn't seem like it's going to slow down. We had that earlier this year. There was maybe a little bit of some doubt with the injury to his hand, and then a slow start to the year. But then he rattles off majors and keeps winning as he does. So I don't see any slowdown in Scheffler's future here.
No, absolutely not. And so while Scotty was doing things that haven't been done since Tiger Woods on the PGA Tour, on the LPGA Tour, something was done that hadn't been done since Annika Sorenstam did it in 2002. Gino Thidekun wins the LPGA Tour finale, and with her finish, she completes the lowest scoring average in LPGA Tour history, averaging 68.681, which beat Annika Sorenstam's 2002 mark of 68.697.
Yeah, this is, she has had a tremendous career and clearly as a talent that, there was only a few that can really say that they have this kind of talent on the LPGA Tour. But to do this when they're lengthening courses and making them more firm than they certainly were in early 2000s where Annika was playing, it's impressive. And it's kudos to her. And, of course, winning a Tour championship is nothing to sneeze at either. It's kind of almost a side effect of this accomplishment that she's got here.
Yeah, she overtook world number 1 from Nelly Korda, who a year ago was the Scotty Scheffler of the LPGA Tour. So that just speaks to how well Gino has played. So really, really impressive, and really cool year. Can't wait to see what 2026, sounds crazy to say, has to offer. Obviously, still a couple tournaments coming up here, but for the most part, pretty slow time of the year for golf coming up here in the next
I think
6 weeks or so.
Yeah, give it there's a couple fun events. There is the Skins game the day after Thanksgiving, which will be really fun on Black Friday. That'll be, I'm curious to see after so long of that being kind of away from us as golf fans, golf viewers, to see how that's brought back with updated broadcast abilities and camera angles and technology that's available. That'll be fun. I'm looking forward to that. And of course, as you said, there's some fun other, there's the crossover event with the PGA Tour and LPGA Tour players teaming up, the Grant Thornton, I believe it's called. It's of course the event Tiger and his son have played,
the PNC.
That'll be televised, I'm sure, in December sometime. So there's still a lot to look forward to. A little bit of a break, so to speak, from truly competitive golf for a lot of these big names.
Yeah. On the PGA Tour, who's your player of the year?
It's got to be Scotty.
See, I in a normal year, I'd say yeah, but I think I'd have to go with Rory.
Yeah?
Finish the career Grand Slam.
That's fair.
And then
He won at Pebble. He won at the Players.
Won at the Players.
Won at Augusta.
Won at Augusta, and then
He had more iconic victories for sure.
Yeah, and then to lead Team Europe to a road win in the way that they did and the way he performed.
Yeah.
I think sometimes narrative goes into it. If Scotty wins it, I don't think anyone should have any issue. But in terms of just the history of what Rory did, I think he's.
I think it does really depend on who, or if you value the historical significance of wins, as to what degree in that kind of Rory versus Scotty discussion. Because what Rory did was awesome. I just think from a pure dominance perspective, if I'm going to take one guy for one round, it's probably Scotty from this year. Yeah. But again, what Rory did in those specific events, and then the way the Ryder Cup went for those two guys was very different. So there's that conversation into it as well.
I think Scotty had the better individual season, but Rory had the more important individual season.
That's probably a good way to put it. And whatever of those two things is more valuable to you as the voter, I guess. You're not really voting, but as a fan, that's how you'd probably decide on that one. But
yeah, so we shall see. But yeah, that wraps up the term. But we're gonna kind of keep the theme of the PGA Tour here. Is we're talking what's in the bag insights with you and Harrison, Drew.
Yeah, this is always a good one to get Harrison's insights because he is a club fitter. He's working with obviously he works with really good players, but also the weekend warrior or anybody that comes in for a fitting. He's working with these products, clubs and shafts, and he knows exactly how they perform. And it's fun to see the crossover of how he'll work with players in the Bay, but also how these players are seemingly getting them set up for their bags on tour. So good stuff here with Harrison. We now welcome on the Second Swing of Thoughts podcast our guy Harrison Arnold back to talk about some winning golf clubs from the weekend. Of course, we have Sami Välimäki on the PGA Tour getting the big win. And then we'll also talk a little bit about Gino Tideku's bag in the CME the Tour Championship on the LPGA Tour. So, but first we'll start with Välimäki. Big win for him. Obviously, these wins with these players are significant in many ways. But we'll dive into the bag here. We'll start at the top as we always do. I think, we have a mini driver in play. But I think, to me, also I want to talk about shaft as well. So the GT3 driver at 8 degrees with a Project X Hazardous Smoke Red RDX 70 and the TX Flex. And then the mini driver is the R7 Quad, the new one with Project X Hazardous Smoke Red RDX as well. So I guess that shaft in particular is where I'm going to start, Harrison. What have you seen from that? You don't see a lot of those in bags.
Yeah, so I think, it's the second week in a row GT3's won, including Matt Fitzpatrick's win last week. But yeah, the Smoke Red is usually not something you see in a tour player's bag because it is that higher launching shaft. So a little bit surprising to see that. Usually people are kind of going for those blacks or the blues and stuff to kind of bring some of that spin down, but clearly that's not really an issue for him. He's kind of pairing of that GT3 head, so he's got plenty of low spin technology there. Good thing about that red shaft, though, it's got a very different profile. So it's got a really stiff stiff butt section and midsection, but has a really active tip section.
Okay.
So what that really means in comparison to like outside of like fitting talk, it just means if you get the club stuck behind you and you've got a pretty active tip section, it's going to be easy for you to square that face up. If you've got a really stiff tip section and you get the club stuck behind you, well, you kind of got no give there, so it's harder to kind of square that face up.
Okay.
Probably kind of watching some of how he plays his golf, he's very creative, right? He's kind of getting underneath and kind of hitting big draws in or doing all the stuff. So probably having something that has a bit more flexibility at the bottom of the shaft probably works well for him.
So maybe a lot of players too probably work. This works for them if they maybe create a lot of lag in the swing. Is that kind of what you're referring to there?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, especially if you're someone who swings quite a lot from the inside.
Yeah.
I see a lot of golfers who have a pretty quick transition, but they get the club stuck underneath. Well, I'm going to move to a shaft that does have a bit more of an active tip section there, so we can have a little bit more success in squaring that face up.
And then one just follow-up question, too, I had on this in particular was when you work with golfers and you do a driver, I guess a full bag or maybe it's a long game fitting, do you frequently recommend playing the same shaft in your driver and fairway wood, or maybe have you had cases where a golfer doesn't want that, or is that generally your recommendation for people?
I mean, usually they work pretty well together. If it works for the driver, it's usually going to work with the 3-wood. Doesn't mean it always happens like that, but there's a pretty good correlation. It is. It's just matching up the weight. So if we're going, whatever we have in the driver, we're going to go at least 10 grams heavier in the fairway wood shaft, and as we head down into the hybrids too. So I'm not too surprised to kind of see that. You kind of go for the more, if it can be a little bit more familiar, then that definitely makes a big difference.
Right. And then now he's also one of the players. You see a lot of these high lofted fairway woods. He's got a TaylorMade QY35 7-wood in the bag, 21 degrees. Just give me kind of the synopsis of this club. I feel like the QI35 fairway woods have been relatively good in fittings throughout the year. What have you seen from that club for whether it's a high-level player or even your kind of average amateur player?
Yeah, I mean, this year is just the year of the mini driver and a high lofted wood, right? So 7-wood's been really popular. I think it's just the added benefit of getting a little bit more launch, getting a little bit more land angle, and it's effortless, right? It's not like we're changing our golf swing to get a steeper land angle, or because in order to do that, we need to hit a few more degrees down, and that could be a big swing change. You can do something as easy as this, and it's forgiving. Well, I mean, if they're doing it, why is no one else doing it, right? So I've had a few things this year where someone's come in with kind of their trusty 3-iron, right? And it works great, looks pretty good, but has a pretty shallow land angle, but they've used the club for a long time. This one guy in particular who said, this is my trust club, it's never leaving my bag. And when I showed him the difference with a 7-wood in comparison to that 3-iron that we was trying, around about the same loft as an slightly older model, and it was over 10 degrees different.
In the landing angle.
Exactly. So we're comparing that with him, I was like, well, how many times have you hit a pretty good shot with this and it's just not stopping? Like, and he was a pretty decent golfer too, and he's like, well, yeah, it does happen, but I do like the club. I'm like, well, I'm not saying you take it out of the bag completely, because there is going to be a situation where that's going to be great. So it's going to be a little bit lower in ball flight. You're going to play a firmer golf course. You're going across the pond more back to where my home is, right?
Right.
Great club, but majority of the time, that 7-wood's going to be a much better option because it's going to come into the green nice and soft, and that's what we're seeing on tour. These guys are playing at the top level of golf. They've got the hardest pin locations, and they need to be able to have a club that comes down soft enough to kind of get near to some of those pins.
Yeah.
So I'm not surprised. And if tour players are looking for more forgiveness instead of using a 3-iron, then I think we should all be kind of looking at that option.
I mean, especially for these guys when they're in these tournaments where, I mean, you have to make birdies on par 5s. And when you get the chances to do so, and you have to be able to hit that 230-yard shot, call it, where it can land and stay on the green. And so that's why you see so many of these guys opting for that.
And looking at that mini driver that you had in the bag, there was a great shot yesterday that Valimaki hit coming down the stretch on, I think it was hole 15, the par 5. So really tough par 5, dogleg left. We played it, when I was playing for the Gophers, we played a college event there, and it's when it starts blowing, that's a really tough hole. I think he had about 248 or something, I think, if I'm remembering rightly. And he's hit this mini driver to about 40 feet to set him up for a easy 2-putt birdie. And that thing came down unbelievably soft, for a long mini driver. I mean, that's probably why he's got it paired with such a high launching, high spinning shaft, so he can have the ability to do stuff like this.
Yeah. That's those are things I feel like you frequently see tour players have, like, Ventus black or hazardous smoke black or something like that. These lower launching, stiffer shafts, but cool to see him opting for more spin. And you see a lot of guys at this level also showcasing why spin can be a benefit.
Yes, I mean, spin is control, right?
Exactly. So next on to his irons. So we've covered the top part of the bag, his irons. He's got Ping Blueprint S. So that, I mean, if you're keeping track at home, he's got 3 different brands in the bag already as far as golf club is concerned. The Ping Blueprint S irons, 4 through 9 iron, playing the Dynamic Gold Tour Shoe X100 mid shafts. What have you seen from either club head here or the shaft in your fittings throughout this year?
Yeah, I think Blueprint S has been really popular this year. I mean, it's their bladed style with added forgiveness. So it encapsulates a big group of people. We're talking low plus figure golfers to even kind of mid-teen golfers who kind of want a little bit more precision at the bottom half of the bag. They might pair that with a I-240 at the top end of their bag. But I've seen that combo being pretty popular, especially kind of in that sort of pitching wedge up to 7-iron, and we kind of fit them into kind of an I-240, maybe even an I-530 towards that top end of the bag.
Yeah.
But again, I think that's 4 wins in 2 weeks for ping irons again.
Yeah, ping irons are hot now. Last week was kind of the ping I-210 week.
Yep.
With
we jumped forward a few years now.
At least one, jumping forward in time there from I-210 to the Blueprint S family. But nonetheless, ping irons, I think in some ways maybe are overlooked. Ping is so thought of as this, they provide forgiveness. They give you stability with especially the drivers and fairway woods. But they make some excellent irons as well.
Yeah, and they're just a great option in fittings when we got someone who just can't spin an iron to save their life, right? That's one of those options we're going to look at, because typically ping irons are just a little bit higher in launch, a little bit higher in spin than other brands. So if I got someone who I can't get the spin above 5,000 in any other brand, we're going to put something like a Blueprint S in there, help bring that spin up.
Yeah.
And what we sort of talked about earlier, spin is control. So it's a great option for a lot of our fittings.
And then the next question I have as we go down to the wedges, we're back to a different brand. Well, the same brand as driver. So this is the Titleist Vokey SM10 wedges. He's got a full set of these, but he does start by playing essentially a pitching wedge in his Vokey set here. So a 46-degree SM10, and then he also follows it up with a 50-degree, 56, and a 60. Just talk to me about what you've seen and what you've done with the players and fittings in terms of that conversation with pitching wedge from an iron set or a pitching wedge as a specialty wedge like it is, like Valimaki has here.
Yeah, I mean, when we talk about moving set wedge to specialty wedge, your mind kind of wanders, think it's for the better golfer. Doesn't always mean that. Better golfers typically do that because they do spin a little bit more, they have a little bit more control, a little more precision. I remember I changed one a couple of years ago. My ability to flight the golf ball was 10 times better. I didn't like how little ball speed I got off it, so it created a pretty big gap between like my 9-iron and my 46 grit at the time. But I personally think it's really easy to flight a wedge when I've got a specialty wedge.
Yeah.
And it's not just for the good golfers. We've had to fit a few guys this year where that set wedge was just giving them a little bit too much ball speed. So that 9-iron and that pitching wedge was just a little bit too close together. By putting that specialty wedge in their hands, just create a little bit of a bigger gap. So it also suited their eye a little bit more. So there's a few things that kind of go in there, but it's not just for the good golfer. It's still a plenty forgiving wedge. It's just it might have a little bit less ball speed than some of the set wedges. So.
Yeah, I think it's kind of about, it seems like it's what you're looking for out of that club. If you like to really kind of mess with the trajectory of your shot with your pitching wedge, especially knocking it down, flighting it some, that's where the benefit of having a specialty wedge, so to speak, or a Vokey in this case, just because the center of gravity is a little bit higher and it will knock down the flight a little bit. But if you kind of just want to hit a standard stock shot basically every time you hit that club, the iron set wedge is probably a little bit better.
Probably going to go for that set wedge. But if you're someone who wants to hit a lot of bump and runs, or you want to hit half shots with your pitching wedge or three, you're probably going to lean towards that.
Yeah.
And like I said, it's not just for the good golfer. Everyone has the ability to kind of hit something a little bit softer than another thing. But interestingly, in his wedges, if you look around, he's got all different grinds and all different like bounces and grinds here. The 46 and the 50, both of the F grind, going to feel very similar to what he has in these irons. And then the 56 and 60, two varying bounce and lie options there. He's gone for that 60, 4 degrees of bounce T grind this week. That gets very tight and grainy down at CR, and so I'm not surprised to see him grab something like that out to help with a bit of turf interaction.
Yeah, allow you to kind of perfectly nip that ball on those turf conditions. And again, that grind is designed for players that are very precise with kind of when they open the face around the green, making sure that contact is absolutely perfect, because it can be really rewarding in that case, but sometimes if you're not totally experienced with that, you can really get yourself in trouble with that grind too.
So especially CR, and around some of those greens, they're on such a raised platform. If you miss, they got some steep little runoffs. So yeah, you're gonna have to sit that face open and hit some real nippy kind of high lofted flop shots around there to
and
get
clearly
up and
he
down.
was able to do so really well. So lastly, with Valimaki, the putter, Odyssey White Hot OG 2-ball. We haven't seen a 2-ball. The 2-ball is historically one of the best putters of all time in terms of the innovation that it brought to the game. but it hasn't been a winner, so to speak, on tour much lately, just because there's been these other innovations. You low torque, you got the longer kind of shafted putters, but it's fun to see this one back in there.
Yeah, no, it was cool. He's even got an added custom Sharpie alignment line going through the two ball, which and they do make two balls with those lines on. So clearly he's used this putter for a little while and he's confident with it. But he's like, I just want to make my own adjustments to it. So interesting to kind of see him winning with something that's, what you call it, older tech now, but when you got spiders and labs around, but it's trusted.
Yeah, and clearly
tried and trusted.
We've tried to emphasize too before how much weight the fitters here, and also the players that you guys fit to when it comes to alignment, right? I mean, alignment is super key when it comes to putter fittings, and so for Valimaki, it's a Sharpie line that works for him. So into Gino Tidikun's bag. Tour championship on the LPGA Tour. She's a Callaway player. We'll run through her bag, and then we'll talk about a couple quick things. But she's got an Elite Triple Diamond driver with a Ventus TR Red shaft. In the 3-wood Elite as well with the TR Blue shaft, Ventus TR Blue. Callaway Apex UW, the 2021 model at 19 degrees. And she goes into her irons, Callaway X Forged Star from the long irons 4 through 5. Callaway X Forged in the 6 through pitch, the standard set. Callaway Opus Raw wedges, and then an Odyssey White Hot Versa 7 putter. So when it comes to her bag, obviously a big win for her as well. What are the big takeaways that you notice in kind of looking at her specs?
Yeah, I mean, it's a pretty stock kind of Callaway bag there, but there's a few real intricacies about a bag, right? So in her driver and her fairwoods, she plays a C4 swing weight for the driver and a C6 for the 3-wood. I think that's about 10 to 11 points off what a standard Callaway Elite Triple Diamond is.
Yeah.
So she's playing that extremely light. And I think on the LPGA Tour, I think D0 is average for
like the average
so slightly
swing weight.
So slightly lighter than what a PGA Tour driver would be. But she is about 5 or 6 swing weight points below that. So it's kind of crazy to see why she's doing that. But typically always see if someone likes a lighter swing weight, they want to keep the club a little bit further out from them. If it's a little bit heavier, the club gets a little bit stuck inside. So for someone size, I think she's only in 5'3" or 5'4". Clearly, she just likes to have something that's a little bit lighter, and it's helping her because she is even at 5'4", she's at 270 yards, I want to say, for driving distance this year, which is
getting a lot out of it.
Which I think is top 25 on the tour. So I mean, she's a great golfer. She's playing some really good golf at the moment, so not really surprising there. But then there's a few things kind of as we move down the bag. Like she has a UW, which is at 19 degrees, a 4 irons at 20.5 degrees, and a 5 irons at 22.5 degrees. Some really tight gaps there.
Yeah.
Typically we're looking for 4 or 5 degree gaps between clubs. Otherwise, they're all going to go kind of similar distances.
Yeah.
But this is.
I think there is something too. I mean, maybe they do go different distances, right? I think there's maybe some confusion sometimes where we really emphasize this point of gapping, but that doesn't mean that the loss have to be different. It just means that each club has to have a unique purpose in the bag. And for her, a 19 degree utility wood or Apex UW, and then a 20.5 degree 4 iron, they do different enough things for her to have them in the bag.
Yeah, we got to remember that one's a metal. It's going to go further. Even if it's the same loft, it's still going to go
longer
5 to 10 yards
shaft.
further.
The center of gravity's back. It's probably going to go higher too. So those are things that she's considering there as well.
Yeah, I think it just shows the importance of getting custom fit for your clubs, because if you look on this and we're looking at this on paper going, that looks crazy. Why is it all so close together? But clearly she's done the testing with Callaway with her coaches and realized that this is the perfect gapping for her. And she's got, even with her irons and her wedges, she has the mix of the X-Forged Star and the X-Forged irons. I think the X-Forged Star you can only buy in the Asian markets, I believe. And she's got the Shimano wedge shafts in there too. Things that we don't really get to see very often. So she's clearly done. She gets the ability to kind of test both sides and figure out what's the best. So it just really shows to how important custom fitting is, especially at that level that she's playing at.
Right. Yeah. I mean, clearly she's done enough testing with some of the unique tweaks that she's done with the swing weights and the lofts and stuff. It's a little bit unique, but yet clearly it works for her at the highest level of women's golf.
And there's only one way to find out if these things work, and it's by testing it.
It's by testing it, yes. So go get, that's a nice reminder as we wrap up the segment here to go for golfers to go get fit like Valimaki and like Gino did as well. But Harrison, we appreciate your time breaking down the winning bags this week.
Of course.
And that was Harrison Arnold. I'm looking at Sami Valimaki and Gino Titakun's bag. You know, I think I thought it was interesting, the conversation about specialty wedge as it pertains to Sami there, because it is really about, you know, I think there's such a there's a preconceived notion that it's about handicap or skill level, and he was trying to kind of curb that and say, well, no, it can be, but it's a little bit about how you use the wedge as well.
Yeah, and I think I put the my I-230 gap wedge in. Obviously, I always play the pitching wedge because it's always a full swing club for me, not much else use. And I put the gap wedge in because that's usually just a full swing club too, and I'd rather have a little more forgiveness with those specific clubs. So that's why I do it. But for others, maybe you do like to bump and run and use your gap or pitching wedge for a little more than just full swing shots. So it makes sense, but it's always a curious decision because I think it is so player dependent. There's not one right way or the other for us amateur golfers. For the professionals, they're so good at ball striking.
Right.
Doesn't shock you. But yeah, really, really interesting stuff there from Harrison. Really appreciate. I think this segment's really cool. Kind of taking a look at why they play it. He can speak from being a really good player himself.
Yep.
And then relating it to the everyday customer, everyday golfer here. What we're seeing in fittings with this specific equipment. None of us are playing the exact clubs the PGA Tour people are playing with, but there's certain trends and certain equipment that we can use to help us.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. I think and he does a great job of, like you said, relating it to these tour level players, because he's a very, very good player himself. But then he also is working with all these golfers that, at all skill levels that they can apply to as well. So that kind of leads us into the next discussion here, which is with Harrison and Jake Montgomery on Club Path, talking about some of these fittings where Club Path, right away, these fitters notice it right away when they're taking warm-up swings and kind of getting these gamer baseline numbers. They can identify based on Club Path, okay, this fitting is going to go a certain way, and there are certain products that are going to be better for this player. They kind of know this right off the bat. So it's kind of fun to get that conversation here with Harrison and Jake.
Hello, golfers. Today I am joined with master fitter Harrison Arnold. We're going to go over kind of Club Path and what we see from players, what causes us to make certain decisions. So looking at some data here that you collected, we have inside, outside, and neutral Club Path. When a player comes in, let's start off swinging kind of across their body or from the outside. What are you typically seeing from launch, spin, direction, ball flight?
Yeah, ball flight, higher, spin, higher, everything higher.
Yeah.
If we're seeing someone who's going to be swinging a lot across it, we're usually going to see a lot of that impact location go into the heel side as well, which adds to kind of more of that spin and that ball launching a little bit higher.
Yeah.
When I see someone a little bit more on the inside, tend to be a little bit lower in spin. Tend to see that ball flight just be a little bit lower as well. You start to see, because it's a little bit lower in spin, do see that ball flight kind of dive out the sky a little bit. But I think it's kind of important to understand what Club Path is, right? It's from a neutral point of a neutral swing plane, which way am I swinging? Am I swinging more from the out to in or from the in to out? That's just going to really determine what shape is going to be on the golf ball. And I think it's important to kind of understand where you sit in that, because a lot of people come into our fittings and don't actually know these things, right?
Absolutely.
They don't understand, I thought I was actually, I've had a lot of guys this year who come and say, I'm really steeping across it, but really they're actually quite good. Maybe it's just really just a face. It's just a face thing. So I have a lot of guys who have a very consistent club path, but they actually struggle with squaring the face up. So it's important to understand the difference between the two.
Absolutely. I mean, I was going to say your club path is going to control the curvature of your golf ball. If you are someone that struggles with a big slice, 9 times out of 10 what's happening is you are just cutting across your body and not closing the face enough. If you're struggling with a hook, you are swinging from the very inside out, and you're not leaving your face open enough. That's just kind of getting into a ball flight laws there. But yeah, the face angle is really going to determine start direction, and then your club path is going to determine how that ball is curving.
Yeah.
Looking at the 7-iron numbers here, I mean, we saw a pretty big difference from the inside path to outside path when it came to spin rate. We saw about a little over 1,000 RPM difference there and the carry difference is almost 10 yards. I would say that that's very in line with kind of what I typically see. People that draw the ball tend to have a little higher smash factor. They compress it just a little bit more, but they tend to have a lower spin rate at the same ball speed. So a fade, and the reason a lot of tour guys do fade the ball is it gives them a lot of control, especially when it comes to spin, land angle, stopping power. And then neutral there is just kind of right in the middle. You hinted a little bit when it came to how club path matches impact location. Can you dive a little deeper on that for me?
Yeah, for sure. So it's really kind of pretty, it's almost kind of common sense, right? The more we swing across that golf ball, the quicker that heel is going to get to that golf ball. Same thing with the swinging away from the inside. The first thing that's going to be presented is the toe. So it really makes a huge difference on which way we are swinging, if we're swinging into out or out to in, on where we're going to strike the ball in the face. And that makes a big difference on your attack angle. It's going to make a big difference on spin and overall distance. And I think it's important to understand, like, if we look at some of those dispersions there, just because I swing from the, like, what was I swinging, 4 degrees from the inside or 4 degrees from the outside, doesn't mean I can't hit a nice straight golf shot, because I can square the face up and make sure it curves back on line. So as you can see, there's a lot of shots down the pipe there, right? But
now I want to just add one thing there. When you say square the face up, a square face is very different based on the path that you are swinging.
Good point.
Ideally, your club path is going to be double your face angle. So if you are swinging 4 from the inside for a right-handed golfer, that's going to be +4. Then you're going to want to have your face be +2, because that's going to make sure that it starts out to the right and then kind of falls back to center. Same thing if you're swinging from the outside and your path is -4, you want your face to be -2, because you need to start it left to allow it to curve right. So a squared face does not always mean 0.0 or perfectly straight face, because depending on your club path, if I have a perfectly straight face, I'm going to hook the ball, because I'm typically 4 to sometimes 6 degrees into out with the driver.
And that's something that I see all the time in fittings, where someone, again, will kind of back that club path, where someone's like, I think I do this and this, but really, you're actually quite good. You just your club path is very consistent. The only thing that's moving around is your face. If I can educate a lot of guys when they say, I swing 3 degrees across it, but they're trying to get that face back to square every time. Well, actually, that's not helping you.
No.
I actually want you to try and close the face at impact, so the ball can start left of target, and you've got the curvature from your outside path to curve it back on line. And I think it's a really big revelation when people come in and you understand, and we can educate people like that, and they go, oh wow, that's completely opposite to what I always thought.
So if someone, let's say they came in, they were swinging across their body a bit, they went and got lessons, they got that more neutral. Do you think they need to get refit for the clubs?
I would say it's definitely worth having another look at your settings on the club, because I think that can make a big difference, because we can set those faces a little bit closed, a little bit open. I think that is worth having a look at.
Absolutely.
Wouldn't say you need to do a complete refit. It might just be let's change a setting here, or let's move the weight here, because if you were swinging way across it and you're just hitting a little bit down of it, we probably put all the weight in the heel side. It probably closed the face a little bit to help you kind of get on your way. But if we kind of neutralize some of that out, maybe we want to move some of these weights around, because that's not helping you anymore.
100%. And then just kind of looking at driver here, the thing that I see really jump out the most is spin rate and then carry distance. So spin rate is always going to be tied to distance when it comes to driver. The lower spin rate you have, the further it's going to carry, and especially the further it's going to roll out. When you are swinging across, you are generating more spin. Like you said, you typically hit it more heel side. You'll kind of see when we pull up impact location as well. It is definitely more in that heel portion when you were swinging from the outside.
It was ever so slightly on the toe side from when we were swinging on the inside, which is kind of what we'd usually see.
But I mean, there's almost a 2,000 RPM difference from being 4 degrees across to 2.8 degrees into out.
And nearly a 30-yard jump in carry distance. Maybe a little bit exaggerated, but great illustration of how exaggerated your club path is going to affect how far the golf ball's going.
100%. I mean, golfers out there, if you want to hit the ball further, but you don't necessarily think you can swing any harder, just getting your club path to be from the outside to the inside is going to gain you plenty of yards. In this demonstration here, it was over 30 yards.
And doesn't mean swinging from the outside is not going to, you can't play golf from that spot.
No, not at all.
We just more sort of outline the differences and what can happen either way. Because I would say even the inside path is complete opposite. It's almost too low. Like I always say that 2,000 is kind of like the hard deck, right? Anything below that 2,000, we're kind of getting in danger of that ball flight just diving out of the sky. You don't have any control. So it's finding a nice. That's why tour players kind of trying to find that middle ground and get as close to neutral as they can. One, so they can shape it both ways if they need to, but also to have the numbers kind of stay pretty consistent.
Absolutely. Well, we hope this has been informational for you guys on kind of how Club Path is going to factor into your club fittings. If you want to work with a master fitter like us, stop into one of our stores or visit us on secondswing.com to work with one of our online fitters.
That was Jake Montgomery with Harrison Arnold talking about Club Path and how that can steer a club fitting. And I feel like it happens pretty often in the fitting bay of the Second Swing.
Yeah, I mean, Club Path is one of the most important, in my opinion, pieces of data you can look at. I mean, you are in to out, I am out to in.
Yeah.
It means we're usually playing different equipment. Obviously, you're still a little better than me, so you're playing a little, more consistent equipment, but just we don't swing the same. We don't play the same. So,
well, I think it's also, I think it's also kind of a cool thing to just explain to viewers. And like when you come in for a fitting, it is of course a club fitting. It's about the clubs that work for your swing. But within TrackMan too, getting this club path information and face angle information also teaches you about your swing.
Yeah.
And okay, if my club path is minus 5.5, it gives you sort of a numeric value to how much out to in your swing is. And I think that's another element of kind of education. And it's not like we're going to try to sit there and correct it. And it's not about getting your swing to be zero, because ultimately very few golfers, if any, are in zeros. They have a tendency one way or the other to draw it or fade it or inside or outside. But it's good to know that as a golfer, to have that baseline knowledge of what my swing tendency is, and then let the club fitters build the clubs to help with that.
Yeah, absolutely. So good stuff there as always. We got a few more segments with Jake and Harrison kind of focusing on some of these. I know we have face angle, speaking of that as one, land angle, and then lie angle. So keep an eye out for those coming up here in the next few weeks. But what else we got coming up on the YouTube side here, Drew? What's been published already and what's coming up?
Yeah, we just did we haven't done a lot of wedge comparisons, but we just got one up as of Monday. The TaylorMade MG5 Callaway Opus SP, a couple of wedge releases this year that we didn't really do a ton of content on yet, frankly. And so we kind of wanted to do that one. I was with Harrison and Koss. We've also got the Apex TI Super Hybrid against the Apex UW. That was one that was asked for by a lot of people. So we filmed that one. That's actually, as of this going up, it is also on the YouTube channel now. So, and if you haven't seen it, a video that's doing really well for us is our 9-wood versus 5 hybrid versus 4-iron video with Emma that went up last week. Really good feedback on that one, and also kind of shows that there is a lot of people are interested in this concept of high lofted woods. And there was some support for players, putting those clubs in the bag.
Yeah, absolutely. And on the wedge comparison, the amount of spin that Harrison generated with the MG5 is absolutely insane. Like, if you haven't seen it, go look. Like, it just, even, and he's a good enough player and a really good wedge player. He hit the first one, and oh my goodness. Like, the thing was, it stayed consistent for him, too. It wasn't just like a one-off. So, really cool comparison when you're comparing spin rates there. So that's good. Yeah, on the second swing guide, of course, we have our holiday gift guide still going on. Lots of different clubs and deals going on throughout the holiday season, of course. It is Black Friday this Friday, so keep an eye out for our Black Friday deals. Lots of great clubs, equipment, golf bags, golf balls, you name it, plus a little trade-in incentive. So keep an eye out for the Black Friday specials, and you'll be able to shop those, of course, on Black Friday. And then, in the Ryder Cup apparel, we got tons of it on our website. It's not just for our PGA champion or our store that we have here in Minnesota. It's listed online, everything from Bethpage Black there. So make sure you check that out as well.
Yeah, that's it's so much stuff. So you got to go to sift through that. But yeah, it's a big week. We got Black Friday stuff. There's going to be Cyber Monday stuff next week. So make sure you stick around and you're subscribed to Second Swing emails as well. You get all the latest on that. Otherwise, subscribe to the Second Swing YouTube channel and the Second Swing Thoughts podcast if you're listening via an audio platform. And we'll see you next week. We hope you have a happy Thanksgiving.